Okay, welcome to this video. This is about 37 minutes long, so parts of the video I'm going to fast forward for you, but I'm going to try and give you as much detail as I can, explain what I'm doing as I do it. So let's get into this now. First thing I'm going to do is select subject. Easiest way for Photoshop to select anything. This is obviously in Photoshop 2020. I haven't updated to 2021 yet, but there's lots of new features of that which I'm going to be bringing to my Patreon channel, so look out for that. Sorry about the noises. So select subject, and all I now need to do is refine the selection as best I can, straight edges, all that kind of stuff. You can see most of the chair hasn't been selected. Samantha has been selected. Obviously Samantha's holding the baby here. The baby can't hold himself up, and we're going to be removing Samantha. So I'm going to use the refine selection brush tool initially, and then I'm going to go right in and I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool shortly. It looks like I'm about to deselect some bits. So polygon lasso tool is now selected. I'm going to go round the entire image and select what I can. So I'm going to fast this bit forward. See in a bit. So now I'm happy with that as a selection. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to actually go into select and mask. Obviously the bears have hair all over the place. We need to refine those edges, otherwise the hair won't come through afterwards. So there's a few bits and pieces here. I'm going to go round and select all the bits and pieces I can, and I'll be back with you in a second. Now you'll see that I'm just finishing off here, and I've got all the hair selected using the selection tools in the mask, selected mask. I'm going to output that onto a new layer with the mask selected. Now what I want to do is keep the shadows. There's a few ways of doing this. The easiest way is to duplicate a layer with the mask, and obviously we don't want things like Samantha in there, her shadow in there, and that kind of stuff, and roughly do an outline of the shadows on the floor. Doesn't have to be fantastically perfect, because we're gonna sort of feather the edges of that in a second anyway. And I'm gonna go a little bit wider there. Remember, I did this, I want to keep as much of that shadow as possible. I'm not too worried about being too accurate at this stage, because I'm going to feather this in a second. So here we have the shadow on its own layer. That's all we've got of that. We cut the rest of it out, and very simply I'm going to turn that layer into, well, it says multiply. I'm sure I don't keep it multiplied, do I? I did this a few weeks ago. I'm forgetting what I've done myself. So now I'm going to use the curves. There we go. So I'm going to use curves to bring down the highlights. See what I'm doing there? You could just use the little arrow at the bottom there, move that along to the left, and that's going to bring down most of the highlights. I'm going to go even further if I remember rightly. Do I go further? There we go. So I'm using that bit at the bottom there just to bring down the highlights. It's going to keep the shadows there, basically just keeping the dark parts of that one little part of that layer that we left, and we can use the mask to refine the edges of that. It's not a major problem. But it just looks effective if you have the original shadows. Obviously there's many ways of doing this. This was the easiest way of doing it. I forgot myself how to do this, so I had to look it up, funnily enough. But there we go. So it looks like we've really refined the edges of that one little layer, which got on rid of all the bits that we didn't need, so it's just kept the areas that we need. And if I turn the background on, you can see that it all looks like one image now. So adding the solid color back, you see it looks quite effective, keeping the shadows. Obviously complex shadow is going to be a bit different. I can maybe go over that in another video at some point if someone wants that. Leave me a comment down below and I'll add that to the list of things I'm going to be doing for my Patreon. By the way, my Patreon is going to be kicking off, so you guys and girls that are in my Patreon group are going to start seeing a lot more videos from me on this channel. I'm refining the crop of this, and of course it's got a solid color background, so the solid color is going to just pop straight in there. It's going to be made into a Christmas card, funnily enough. So I'm going for a kind of 4x5 look. I've got this background which I'm going to put in there, and obviously the solid color background is just for reference, but here we go with this. I should be stretching this and putting it all over the place and stuff. You could turn that image into a smart object if you really wanted to. It's going to be printed. It's going to be I'm going to soften it up as well, because obviously I want to add a little bit of depth to this image, with baby being in the forefront and the background being slightly out of focus. I'm not too worried about stretching it and losing any detail really. The floor obviously underneath baby needs to be kind of crisp and sharp, which it is, but the entire background is crisp and sharp. I'm just moving it into place at the moment. Going to stretch it out a little bit. Let's get it to where I want it. I want that the little teddy bear in the background to sort of pop its head up over the top there, mainly because it's going to give reference to the other teddies we've got in there. But we do need to do a little bit of work on, you know, our picture, the baby and stuff, because it doesn't quite now fit in with the background. So we're going to start looking at doing that. We're just going to sort the background out first. No, so we're now working just on the baby layer. We're going to try and get it to color grade and light the same way it does with the background, because obviously the background's a lot lighter, a lot more color in the background. You just have to remember to clip these to that one layer. So you can see I'll click there. You can press control something. Oh no, hold control, I think. Hold control, and between the layers it will give you the arrow to clip to the layer beneath, and you can see that by the two little sort of down arrows on the video there. So I'm using various different layers. You know I like my curves adjustment layers. I'm always going to use curves adjustments. Hue saturation, I'm just going to give this a little bit more color, so I've saturated a little bit to go in line with the background. Obviously the balloons in the background are a bit lighter. With the curves layers, I've actually turned them off, and I'm actually using a brush now to brush back in the light areas and the dark areas. So you see I've got two curves there. I've got curves number 2, curves number 3. I think one of them will be a light to lighten the parts of the image, the other one will be to darken it. Your basic dodge and burn using curves. I can go over this in more detail, but it's my favourite way to dodge and burn using curves. And what I basically do is affect the entire image, turn it off with the mask, and then paint back in the areas that I want to paint in. So you see that I'm adding some dodge areas to the image here. Looks quite effective. I'm going to speed this bit forward because you don't need to watch me do dodge and burning all this time. Now I've done my dodge and burn, I'm going for another curves adjustment layer, and I'm going to affect the background. So this is just working on the background now. You see the curves layer is right down the bottom in the list of my layers there, so I'm working on the background. And I'll do a few bits and pieces here. I'm just going to try and match the background to the foreground now, because I just think the background is maybe a little bit too dark. So I've turned off the, you see I've turned off the mask again, and I'm painting in where I want to darken the background. This is going to give me a little bit of a vignette. So look, I'm now affecting, you see I'm only working at 9% flow, so I don't want this to be a massive whoosh. I just want to turn it right down, turn the flow right down. Sometimes I'll turn the opacity right down as well, and just build up and build up and build up. You don't want to affect the image too quickly. Sometimes you just want to build up really slowly. So another curves adjustment layer. This time I'm going to give it a slightly washed out feel. I'm going to go for a bit of a contrasty feel on the background, so give it more contrast, because there was very little contrast in that original image. You know, I want to see the grain in the wood, that kind of stuff. And it's starting to match. If you look at the wood on the floor, it's starting to match the love sign, which is wooden as well. So the kind of contrasty look is all kind of matching. Effectively, I'm trying to make this look like it was shot like this, you know, for Christmas cards. It's going to look pretty darn good, hopefully, but we'll see. So now I'm adding a blur filter. This is from the blur gallery. This is what blur is this? Tilt shift blur. So what I can do is, the point in the middle is the point where it starts. The first line is where the effect starts, and the graded line is where the effect ends. So you can beef up the blurriness to go from that first line to the last line. It's a bit like a diffused effect from 0 to 100%. So obviously the same underneath as well. So the blur starts at the bottom of the teddy bear's foot, because I don't want the foot to be blurred, and then goes out towards what would be the camera. Hope that makes sense. Try and explain it the best way I can. And then you're just tweaking the stuff there just to get the effect on the blur. Hit that out. Bear in mind, this effect will put a lot of pressure on your processor. The blur gallery is a massive one to put a lot of stuff on the processor. Slows my computer down. So now I've made a single layer at the top by, I think it's Control Alt Command E, and I'm now going to do some global effects on the picture itself. So I'm going to go into Camera Raw Filter. I've turned it into a Smart Filter. I'll go into Camera Raw Filter. I use Smart Filters a lot. They will put pressure on your processor, but it means you can change stuff later. It's a way of working non-destructively, and I'll cover that in another video. But what I'm doing now is I'm using Camera Raw, which is the same as Lightroom essentially. From 2020, the way it looks like Lightroom as well. So if you're used to using Lightroom, you can now use this in a very similar way to give you some very good effects. And the Camera Raw filter is absolutely fantastic. I generally use this at the end to give a global effect, and then potentially use other bits and pieces to add a global effect. So when I've composited pictures together like this, you can now affect the entire image and just really combine it a little bit easier and make it look really good. So various different bits and pieces here, a bit of split toning. Obviously, if you use Lightroom, you're going to know all these bits and pieces. I held down Alt or Option to make to find what color I want to use. Obviously, the saturation was at 0, but it kind of gives you the 100% look to see what color you want to use first, and then bring in the saturation, you know, to what you desire after that. So I've affected the highlights and the shadows separately. So I've got yellows in the highlights and blues in the shadows, which is kind of a de facto kind of look. You know, the shadows have that kind of blue washed out look, and sometimes in the highlights, especially where there's a lot of lighting in this picture, there is a lot of light in this picture, you're going to want to get a bit of warmth in the highlights. So that's pretty much what I've done. Now to add a little bit of a vignette, add a little bit more on that. It kind of is that basic rule of drawing people into the center of your picture. No, it's up to you what you desire to do here. You don't have to do that. And let's have a look at some of the effects that we're going to do on that. We can change the midpoint, which I think I do. Yeah, boost it in, feather it a lot. I tend to feather my vignettes a lot, and then just go back over and have a general look. You know, it's completely up to you. It's going to vary depending on the picture. You can see it before and after. looks pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Nice. So that's before and after the filter, and we're pretty much done really. I don't think I did much more. Did I add a yeah, color lookup? Okay, let's see what color lookup I used. There's a few here. Edgy amber maybe is a good one. Crisp warm look, obviously it goes to 100%. You can bring that down with the opacity and just bring it in ever so slightly to your desired taste and have a look. Did I like that one? No. Let's go down to teal and orange, soft warming. There we go, and boost that up a little bit more. Soft warming was quite nice, gives a very nice effect, but completely up to you. It's one of those things where it's a personal choice. Again, doing this kind of stuff at the end, doing a global effect on a global image is going to bring that image all in together. I do that the same with landscapes, portraits. You know, I do my stuff right at the end. Completely up to you. And there we go. That's it. That's the picture just there. All done. I hope you like this. More stuff to come on my Patreon. I'm going to be really kicking that in as explained on my workshop group today. I'm going to go live today explaining what's going on with workshops and stuff like that, and how it's going to all work and stuff going forward with the current COVID situation. So look forward to seeing you all more on Patreon. If you haven't upgraded to a better level and you think you might benefit from upgrading, obviously you get more benefits if you upgrade. Please do so. You'd be helping me out a massive amount. I love you guys, and I'll see you all soon. Take it easy. Have a great day.